And then when the motion was heard, I explained what the plea agreement was. I explained that I had no objection to, I believe I said I have no objection to the motion. The defense had filed the motion, and I included that portion in my explanation of the plea and the fact that the $500,000 was subject, the use of it was subject to the approval of the judge.
And those terms were read in open court?
Yes.
Judge Alred was there presiding at the hearing, correct?
That's correct.
And he approved this agreement?
Yes, he did.
And then did you receive a copy of the order that he signed setting forth those terms?
Yes, I did.
Let me show you what was marked as exhibit number 6. This is the order entered on March 11, 2010 in the Commonwealth versus Dr. V and Dr. Lamani case.
Yes.
Have you seen that order before?
I have, yes.
Who prepared that? To your knowledge?
I do not know. I didn't.
That order indicates that the language that's in the January 11th order was put in inadvertently. Do you agree with that?
No.
Why not?
The judge knew about it before the motion was even filed. He knew about it. We discussed it. He had told me what he was going to use it for, and which was the water park. And he told me that he had an appointment to go talk to a gentleman who put in a water park. And he did that very close to the date of the plea, is what he told me, that he went and talked to someone who just put a water park in Barberville.
And in that same order entered March 11th, marked as an exhibit that's before you, it also says it was neither solicited nor approved by this judge. Is that accurate?
No.
Why not?
Well, he solicited the money, and he was stating what it was to be used for, and he definitely approved it when he signed the order in the first place.
Did you have concerns? The order said that the funds were to be donated to Harlan Fiscal Court to alleviate drug abuse in Harlan County.
Correct.
Among other concerns, were you concerned that a water park wouldn't fall within the parameters of that?
I was concerned about that, and I went to the county attorney and told him of my concern. I said, I think that if this is used for water park, the doctors may sue to get the money back because it's not being used to alleviate drug abuse. That was my opinion. I just didn't think it was closely related enough. I saw it as a risk.
As Commonwealth attorney, one second, please. Just need to get to my other set of papers here before I move on. As Commonwealth attorney, at some point, did you become aware of an investigation that was being conducted by the Sheriff's Office in Harlan County involving Judge Executive Grisham?
I did.
Tell us when you learned of it and how you learned of it and what you came to learn.
I would say it was in the fall of, let's see, it would be the fall of 2009 sometime. I'm not exactly sure what date, but the sheriff came to me and said that they had an informant who had told them that she could buy drugs from Joe Grisham in his office, and that also she could buy drugs from other well-known people in the county who she said were together in selling drugs and that sort of thing. And the sheriff had wired her with a video device that would record what happened and sent her in, and she came out with a pill. Now, she was searched before she went in, and she came out with a pill. On the video, though, you did not see that pill change hands. You would have to take what she said as truth in order to deem that there was actually a drug handed over by Judge Grisham. And the problem with that is she's a drug addict, and she'd been through drug court. She was facing drug trafficking charges at the time, and that's not good enough. That's why we wire them, is so that we do not have to rely on the informant's credibility itself. We have it right there. Well, after I watched it, I told the sheriff, well, this is something, but it's not enough. And also that I did not think that he asked me, should I investigate it or should I drop it? And I said, you have to investigate it, but I don't think you should be doing it. And I said, you need to go to the Attorney General's office and have their public integrity section oversee this investigation. And so that's what happened.
Then what was the next step in the investigation that you became aware of?
They, after they had done 2 more tapes where they sent her in and so forth, the Attorney General's office deemed that there was not evidence of a drug transaction and that the informant was not credible. Mm-hmm. And so they were dropping the investigation. Now, at one point I talked to Judge Alred about that in his office. I think he had asked about it, about what was going to happen with that. And I said, well, I think the case needs to go to the grand jury, even though we know it will be a no true bill, which means no indictment. Because when you have an investigation of a public official, the public needs to see that it's not being swept under the rug and that the evidence is presented to a grand jury. And they make the decision that there's not enough evidence for an indictment. So he was in agreement with that. And then later he suggested that we use a special grand jury. In other words, or actually what he was talking about was a grand jury from another county so that they wouldn't have the taint of local politics involved in that jury's decision, that grand jury's decision. And I thought that sounded just fine, sounded okay, and said that that would be good to do that. Then, and for that matter, I don't know if he suggested it or I did. I said maybe we should even have a special prosecutor. And the reason for this is that Joe Grisham and I were both elected officials in Harlan County. And, I wanted to make sure there was no taint of politics involved in what happened with the grand jury. So I got a phone call, I think it was on the 22nd or the 23rd, where the judge said he had entered an order to appoint a special grand jury because he had talked to another judge who knew about these things, who said that we couldn't just get a grand jury from another county, that first we would have to try to impanel a grand jury in Harlan County and see if they had problems with, prejudice one way or another against the accused. And so we'd have to try that. And so he was ordering that a grand jury be summoned, 50 people, and see if we could get a jury. And
before you go on, can I just kind of interrupt for 1 second?
Okay.
Mr. Johnson, I apologize, but I want to try and get the timing down, because I think that's important here in terms of putting this all in order.
Right.
The conversation you had the conversation with Sheriff Lipper, in which he briefed you on the investigation, told you what he had, showed you the tape.
Right.
You suggested to go to the Attorney General to have them investigate. Then at some point you received notice, is this now in 2010, you received notice that the Attorney General did not believe there was evidence to support the allegations?
I believe it was in 2010.
And then you go and you discuss the matter with Judge Alred. Do I have the sequence down?
Yeah, I don't think I went over to discuss it with Judge Alred. I think I was over there for something else, and it came up.
Did he bring it up?
I believe he did.
Did he know about the investigation?
He did.
Did he know detail, from what you could tell from the conversation, did he know details about the investigation?
Yes.
What did he say?
Well, he just seemed completely familiar with the case. He didn't really give me specific details of the investigation. He knew there were videotapes. He said something about that. He knew who the informant was. I advised him about the Attorney General's office being brought in to oversee it and what their conclusion was. And I also advised him that there would be a no true bill returned because there just wasn't a case there against Judge Grisham.
And that was based on the lack of video evidence, Ms. Hensley's lack of credibility,
Correct.
and the Attorney General's investigation into the matter.
Correct.
But was there a discussion then, before April 22nd, with Judge Alred, there was this discussion about convening a special grand jury?
Well, right, or a grand jury from another county, yes, from Belknap.
And was there also a discussion with Judge Alred, because this investigation had been pending, and with the election that was coming up in a few weeks, that this matter should be presented before the election?
Well, at that time, although there were little rumors circulating about it, people really didn't know about it. It wasn't common knowledge that there was this investigation of Joe Grisham or anything of that nature. Close to an election, there are all sorts of rumors that fly around, and I didn't think this one was being given much weight, much buzz. So I really wasn't in that big a hurry to present it at that time.
Well, what was your thought process in terms of when it should be presented and how it should be presented?
I really didn't have a strong feeling at that point that it needed to be done before the primary.
At that point in time?
At that point. At that point.
At some point later, you felt it needed to be presented before the primary. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
There was a change in circumstances.
Okay, and what was that change of circumstances, Mr. Johnson?
Okay. The order that the judge entered for a special grand jury named County Judge Executive Joe Grisham and his office. In other words, it specified that this was from drug trafficking in his office. And that caused a big fuss. And the way this happened was on April 22nd was when the order was entered. On April 29th is when I heard from Judge Alred about an order being entered. Then that Saturday night, emails were sent to media saying a special grand jury has been ordered to investigate drug trafficking in the office of County Judge Executive Joe Grisham.
What date did I supposed to inform you on?
April 22nd was the special grand jury order date. What date did you receive the call?
It was either late that day or the next day. Now, I know he did call me on Friday about that
23rd?
order, the 23rd.
I won't be clear about this.
Thank you, Judge.
Right, he did call me on Friday. Then on Saturday, that was disseminated. And on Monday morning, when I came into the office, I received phone calls from an AP reporter and another reporter from it may have been WYMT, the TV news. I'm not sure who it was, but there was another one who called me about it. At that point, I had the order, but I hadn't seen it yet. It was in my office, but I hadn't seen it yet. So when I got these calls, I opened it up and looked at it and saw what they were talking about.
And what was your reaction when you read the language of that order?
I
And I'll show it to you.
Right.
Exhibit number 11.
Could I have some water? I'm just, do you have any available? Please?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, should I go ahead or wait?
Continue on.
We can continue on if you're,
Okay.
as long as you can speak.
Sure, I can. Okay, there were some things that were wrong in the order. For example, that it was to deal with an ongoing and lengthy investigation, which could not be handled in the term of the regular grand jury. At this point, the investigation was over with. There was no more investigation going on. Okay, the order actually refers to the Harlan County Judge Executive and his office, but does not name that it's Joe Grisham, but everyone knows who it was. And says again that it's an ongoing investigation. I thought that my reaction was that I thought that the part about it being an ongoing investigation was incorrect, and also that naming the Harlan County Judge Executive and his office was not necessary to do this. All that was necessary was to direct that 50 jurors be come in to see if they could be impaneled for a special grand jury. I did not like what this was doing as far as Mr. Grishup's impact.
Things in there you've identified for us that you thought were incorrect.
Correct.
And you were troubled by the fact that it specifically designated that it was an investigation into selling of drugs by the Harlan County Judge Executive out of his office.
Correct.
And you knew that primary election was coming up in a week or two, and this would have an impact on that election probably.
Correct.
And so did you draw any conclusions as to any motives that may have been behind the entry of this order?
Yes, I thought it was political, and I thought the dissemination of it was political. Sending it out like that to the media, I thought was a political act, and an attempt to use the criminal justice system for political purposes.
Mr. Johnson, did you release that order to the media on April 22nd, 23rd, 24th, or 25th?
No,
When did you first read it?
the 26th, Monday.
On April 26th, did you provide a copy of it to a reporter?
I did.
Tell us the circumstances under which you did that and why.
Okay, I had received these calls from out-of-town news outlets, and I called our local newspaper to find out what they knew about it. And I was calling for Debbie Caldwell, who was the news editor at that time. I've known her for many years. I've known the people out there for many years. And she was not there due to illness of her daughter and so forth. So I was put in contact with the reporter at that time, Nola Sizemore. And she came to my office. She hadn't heard anything about it. Now, I don't know if the email was sent to Debbie Caldwell, who was out of the office because of her daughter's illness, or if the local paper was not sent one, or what. But Nola came to my office and to talk about it, and she asked me to give her a copy of the order. And it's a public record. It wasn't sealed. I thought, you know, she can get that. She's allowed to get that. So I gave her a copy of it. Also, the people who had called me, the reporters, had told me exactly what it said. You know, that it was to investigate illegal drug trafficking in his office. My impression was they had been sent the actual order. But I later found out, after I saw one of the emails, that it wasn't the actual order. It was just a recitation of what was in the order. But anyway, I gave her a copy of it, and then I started thinking about it, and I said, I'll tell you what, let me have that back and just go ahead and get one from the courthouse. And she said, well, let me keep this, and if I can get one from Judge Alred, then I'll just tear yours up. And I said, okay, okay. So later she told me that that's what had happened. And then later I heard that that's not what happened, that she in fact kept mine and didn't get one somewhere else. But that's how I happened to give her one. And that was on Monday, after the email had gone out to the media on Saturday night. The reason that I called out there is that whenever I get calls about a case from out-of-town media, I usually call the Enterprise because I do not want to give statements or press conference to the out-of-town media and cut out our local media. In other words, if I'm going to talk to somebody about it, I want them to be included.